Good evening and welcome to Your Vote, Your Voice, Town Hall Crisis at the Border. I'm Mandy Noel with News 4 San Antonio.
Hi, Mandy, and I'm Jamie Virgen with Fox SA. Our stations are teaming up tonight to address this important topic. In the next hour, we will sit down live with the people who are directly impacted and involved in the decisions at our border.
We will take a deep dive into the migrant crisis, the strain on resources at the border and beyond, from law enforcement, staffing, the local, state, and federal funding involved, what happens once migrants cross into the United States, the impact on businesses, ranchers, and our communities. Plus, we'll talk about recent immigration laws and lawsuits on the state and federal levels and how they're going to be enforced. Our expert panel will also answer your questions.
Now we want to introduce you to our expert panel. They're all sitting here tonight. We're starting with Ari Jimenez, retired Homeland Security Special Agent in charge. We also have Chris Cabrera, Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council. And of course, some of you will remember Antonio. Antonio's been on the news a lot lately with this surge. He is the CEO of Catholic Charities.
Following that, Mr. Cowboy Hat and Boots over there, we've got Bill Martin, a South Texas rancher, and our lone lady panelist, Anna Lichtenberger. You are an attorney with Alonso. So we're so grateful for all of you for taking the time to be here, taking time out of your day for this very important topic.
All right, and we also have Melissa Vega, who's going to be here with us tonight, and we'll be taking a few questions from people.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead and send them in through Facebook, and we want to hear what you want to ask this panel.
Yes, so we'll get to the panel in just a sec. We want to tell you exactly how to get involved now. So the discussion is interactive online.
Yes, it is. Now, we'll be following the conversation on social media. And again, like we said, Melissa's going to be here with us. A lot of times we sit at home and we're wondering, hey, I wonder about this or that. Write down those questions, and Melissa will be taking the questions and giving them to us tonight.
Why don't they ask that? Well, you can have us ask that if you'd like us to. So, Melissa.
Yeah, well, Yami, Mandy, this is a very candid and open discussion, and we want you, the viewer, to get involved as well. We want to hear from you. Of course, we will be monitoring your comments on social media, sharing them during this town hall. And once you get those comments, we are going to share those comments right here. You can submit your questions for our panel on Facebook. To find us, just search News 4 San Antonio, write a comment under this town hall post. It is pinned on the page. And stay with us. We will ask our panel your questions live in just a few minutes. Yami, Mandy, back to you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Now, December of last year, after covering the border for more than 25 years, I saw something shocking. Thousands of migrants by the side of one of the bridges in Eagle Pass, Texas. It was cold, and the sheer number of them overwhelming to Border Patrol, DPS, and all law enforcement agencies. In December, a record number of 250,000 migrants crossed into the U.S. through the southern border. In January, that number dropped by 50% for several reasons we will be discussing tonight.
And as the weather gets warmer, I think everybody knows more migrants are expected to make their way to the southern border. And we got the situation in Haiti right now, which is driving even more. But will new action taken by state and federal officials slow the migrants down? In recent months, the state of Texas added razor wire and other barriers along the border. The Mexican military is also enforcing immigration laws across the Rio Grande. And in Washington, talks continue about a larger border deal. The migration trend has shifted now more toward Arizona and California recently, but that may not last either.
I think we will continue to see individuals seeking safety and coming to our borders. And I think it's really important that those individuals have access to a humane asylum system.
What you're going to see is as the numbers start to increase again in Texas, they're just going to go to the left and right of where the state has established its security.
Congressman Henry Cuellar says a big factor will be if the Mexican military continues its efforts. So let's jump right to get perspective on the migrant crisis from you, our panel. So we're going to start with Ari, the former head of Homeland Security Investigations for South Texas. Do you think it's the state and Operation Lone Star that's working, or is it really more what they're doing on the Mexican side?
Well, thank you for having me, and Mandy and Yami. Definitely all the efforts from the state of Texas, Governor Abbott, with barriers and utilizing National Guard and more of the DPS troopers has had an impact in controlling the border. As you mentioned earlier, the wave of the migrants and they're moving towards the west. This is in direct result of those barriers. However, we also know that as we face a new challenge with Haiti, and a lot of the individuals trying to flee from the criminal entities that are controlling Haiti, we're gonna pretty soon see another spike in migrants showing up at our borders in Texas.
What are they telling you? What are your members, your Border Patrol members telling you right now that has brought the numbers down?
Right now, the general consensus is what's going on with the state of Texas. What Governor Abbott's doing, what the Texas borders are, Mike Banks has put in place. You know, the efforts they're doing right now is pushing them out to Arizona, pushing them out to California, and in the Texas area, where we're glad it's a nice little break for us. We've been getting hit for a good long while, so yeah, I think it's mostly due to what the governor's done.
Now, Antonio, once they've paroled people into the United States, they're here legally, waiting their turn for the system. How are you handling the numbers? I mean, we talk about this every night, and you got a little lull, but how are you guys doing this?
Well, it has been really, really tough since 2021. We have seen a constant increase of people coming through to San Antonio. There were nights in November and December of 2022 where we had 1,500 people at Catholic Charities. We couldn't actually do it. We had people just sleeping in the parking lot, trying to feed everybody and ensuring that moms' babies were taken care of. Luckily for us, December has gone low, and actually January now we've seen a nice reduction of people, but we also wonder what's going on with them. What happened to these people right now?
And the video that's on the screen is from by the Migrant Resource Center. And I remember reading something that we had you on, and you were saying, through the month, I think it was November, 8,000 people stopping in, which is not something that you guys were really equipped to sustain. And we'll get to the funding in a second. But I also want to talk with Bill. When we're seeing these surges, you live there. How is this affecting you? What are you seeing?
I guess South Texas ranchers like I am are the first group affected by them when they come across. The Border Patrol's, of course, trying to catch them, but we're the one that suffers as a result. So we have, or I have in particular, problems that range anywhere from slightly irritating to heart-rending to heart-stopping. It just depends on what's going on. So minor issues, they'll take apart water. I found one time dismantling the float and valve assembly in a water trough, needed water. He didn't realize I had the valve turned off, so I opened the valve and he got water, and I gave him a sack of almonds and he melted back in the brush. I've also had him run through the fences. We have a lot of bailout problems. 2 weeks ago I had someone pull up to my gate. I am about 15 miles from the border. And they pushed with a vehicle on the gate until the Border Patrol lock popped. The gate came open. I think they came or went in and picked up a group. They have cell phones and GPS coordinates on them now, so they knew precisely where they were. Luckily, no cattle were close to the gate. Nothing got out on the highway to get run over. So, like I said, it goes from heart-rending to heart-stopping. And 2 years ago, I was on the south side of the ranch. It was a November cold day, 38 degrees and drizzling, and two little girls, about 18 each, came staggering out of the brush. And all they could say was, "Ayúdame, ayúdame." And they had come across with a group of 80. They couldn't keep up, 3 of them. One of them laid down and died out there someplace, and they were just about to do the same thing. They were so cold.
And it's an awful tragedy, and for them, for you to have to be witnessing that. Ana, I know you see, once these people get into the U.S., like Antonio, they're in San Antonio, so they've made it through. I'm sure you deal with a lot of trauma.
We do, yes. So we hear a lot of the stories of people who try to cross and the history of them actually traveling from their home countries to the United States. And it's absolutely heartbreaking to hear some of these stories. A lot of them fear persecution from their hometowns. So they are actually trying to get here to seek help and relief in the United States.
So, and I know that you are helping a lot with a lot of these groups and these migrants who are getting here and trying to make a life in the United States. We'll get with you more, Anna. All day on our website and social media platforms, we've asked you who does a better job protecting the border, Texas or the federal government. Here are some of those live results. You can see 90% of people say they feel Texas is doing a better job, and only 10% are in favor of the federal government's handling of what's going on at the border. The poll's still up. You can scan the code on your screen to chime in. We'll have updates for the results a little while later.
Now our discussion is just getting started. Next, we'll take your concerns to the panel so they can respond.
Yes, stay with us for your voice, your vote, Crisis at the Border.
Welcome back to Your Voice, Your Vote, Crisis at the Border.
We asked you to submit your border-related questions on the News 4 SA Facebook page.
Now, Melissa Vega standing by with some of your questions for the panel tonight. Melissa?
Well, we have been monitoring the questions on Facebook, and please feel free to keep them coming in as well. Again, we are looking through them, and we also have some questions that we want to share with you through this conversation. We are monitoring that social media feed right now, and let's get to one of those questions that we have. And one of the questions that we have is, will the border wall work? The question is, will the border wall work?
Probably something, yeah, I bet everyone has an opinion on that,
Yeah.
so.
Let me start. Yes, short answer is yes. Through the 1990s, we saw how putting a barrier in Arizona work and push the migratory movement and towards the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. Same situation happened here. The challenge that we have is it's a time barrier. We're not talking about a border that is going to definitely stop everybody from crossing. It is a time barrier, and the time barrier is to allow law enforcement to respond and take the appropriate actions It's a combination of the physical barrier with some technological barriers. It's just as simple as we have a little fence in our house. Somebody can climb it, absolutely, but it's a time barrier and allow us to have that response time.
Anybody else?
I got something here. It does work. I mean, you look at Shelby Park in Del Rio and the Carrizo and the Eagle Pass area. Everybody's upset because the governor put fencing up, and people can't get through. It's working. And what people need to understand about the wall system we have in Texas is it's not a wall from Brownsville to San Diego. We put them in certain areas, strategic locations, so that we can funnel people. We don't want people crossing into neighborhoods where people can get hurt, where kids are playing, or where there's school zones. We want to have, if we're gonna play this game, we're gonna play it where we want, on our terms, where it's safe for everybody, and we're gonna dictate the game, not them.
Antonio, and I'm going to ask you this, and Ana, how many times, what's the most amount of times that a migrant has attempted? Did anything stop them, really?
I have met people who have tried 4 or 5 times to get into the U.S. They come, they're caught by Border Patrol or whoever, go back to the countries and come back.
Okay, there you go. You heard it from them.
Okay, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to just tease this. Sheila Carvajal Betez, your question will be coming up soon, but keep those questions coming. We'll be back later to answer more questions.
Thank you, Melissa. Now we'll be right back with those questions in just a little bit. And think about things that you have always wanted to ask someone. I know many of these people, you see them on TV, you got them here now. We'll see you in a few moments.
Next, we'll address the strain on resources the border crisis has on law enforcement and communities in our state. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We want to show you this footage from last week if you haven't seen it near El Paso, where migrants try to tear down a razor wire fence. National Guardsmen and Texas DPS troopers fired beanbag rounds at the migrants, trying to stop them. And all this comes after migrants stormed the border in El Paso a few days earlier, overwhelming the National Guard. Some reports say this happened after some families were separated, men separated from women and children. And that's just a few of the examples of the challenges that border agents, sheriffs, other law enforcement, deputies, police are facing. Let's talk about the strain the crisis has on those resources.
That's right. And President Biden signed the fiscal year Homeland Security Appropriations Bill into law over the weekend. It introduces a series of funding initiatives aimed at securing our border. It includes $495 million to support Border Patrol agents. Now, we're going to go straight to you, Chris. I know many of the agents out there are tired. They don't see their families. Some have died by suicide. What are you doing and what can be done to help them out?
You know, we do have a problem with agent suicide. I think it's hit our agency more than it's hit any other law enforcement agency in the nation, and part of that is not just the satisfaction with the job, but a lot of it is what we see out there on a daily basis. I mean, we see things that no human being should have to see. You know, with dead children, with women that have been violated, with young kids that things have happened to them, and it weighs you down, and it sticks with you. I think that's what most people don't see. Most people think that us as agents, we're heartless and we're trying to kick everybody out. And if you saw what we saw, you would understand the need to turn off the beacon that says risk everything to come here, because a lot of people don't make this journey, and that's the heartbreaking part.
So, and I also want to talk to you, Antonio, and you may be able to weigh in on this as well. That initiative that passed last week that the president signed also includes $650 million for programs that help migrants who are awaiting immigration proceedings. So is that enough? Will it help? Antonio, you've seen the Migrant Resource Center at its fullest. It's been crammed, and you said the city of San Antonio has said, we need more federal dollars. What's it going to take to get us through?
Correct. So we don't know yet. So it's true. Saturday, government passed $650 million for SSP funding. However, we still don't know how much money is coming to San Antonio. We don't know, do we need to apply for the money? Is the money going to be granted to Catholic Charities or the city of San Antonio? We have no idea how we're going to do this. So in the meantime, we have to prepare to reduce the services that we're providing until we know what's going to happen.
Anna, the same question.
Yeah, so I agree with Antonio. I mean, there's just not enough right now, and we don't know what that number would be like, just because of the constant change that's occurring with everything that's happening with immigration right now and all the people who are coming in.
Tossing this question out, do you guys think that throwing money, and I mean, our government has to spend, we need the federal money for Border Patrol, for the groups that are helping the migrants, but what do we do to get to the root of the situation? And just whoever wants to.
Mandatory detention, mandatory removal. That's it. That solves the problem. If you put a hard line in the sand and say, if you come, we will send you back, and you actually do it, it will stop. And then if you need to reform the system, you reform it. But what people are trying to do now is reform the system without securing the border. And it's like if your sink is overflowing with water, are you going to mop first, or are you going to turn off the water? We're trying to mop, and it's continuing to overflow. I mean, Reagan did an amnesty, and we never secured the border, and look where we're at. And we're trying to do the exact same thing over again, and we're going to continue to fail.
Bill, where would you like to see that money put? Your property, you have to replace fences. Where would you want that money to go?
Well, right now, there's absolutely not a dime spent on any of my problems. And it's just part of what I have to spend to be in the cattle business, the way I look at it. But every house on the ranch has been broken into. We've had to fix that ourselves. Fences have been cut, and a lot of problems that people aren't aware of. Now, if I can keep going, I do want to say that I think we need more agents. I see them on a daily basis, and I know that at home we got one helicopter has to cover over 2 million acres, and it doesn't make any difference if they just can't get there. Now also, the agents themselves, they're compassionate. I was coming out of the ranch one day last summer. We had a string of days of 110 to 115. Came up on a woman that was unconscious. Two agents were frantically trying to get her in a vehicle to get her into the hospital, and I got in front of them, got the gate open, and just waved them on through. But they were wanting to help these people.
So yes, and all of your input, that is so incredibly helpful, and it's important that we reiterate that to all of the people who are tuning in right now. We'll have more from our panel as Your Voice, Your Vote, Crisis at the Border continues after this. Welcome back. Here's a live look at our poll. We asked you, who does a better job protecting the border, Texas or the federal government? Same percentages. 90% of people who are weighing in say Texas and 10% say the federal government. Scan the code and let your voice be heard.
Now, welcome back to Your Voice, Your Vote, Crisis at the Border Town Hall. We have a lot more to cover, but we are moving this online. Head over to News 4 San Antonio or foxsanantonio.com right now.
And we want to hear from you too. We've got so much more to talk about with our panel, and it's going to be a lot more of a free-flowing conversation. Hop on Facebook, send us your questions under the post that's pinned to the top of the page. Our expert panel will answer those questions. When we switch over, just head over to news4sa.com, and foxsanantonio.com is the live stream of our town hall discussion continues.
Thank you for joining us. Ready?
Welcome back to Your Voice, Your Vote, Crisis at the Border.
Thank you for staying with us here online. We have more time because this is a subject that deserves the time. We have been discussing the strain on the resources and also how should the U.S. deal with the countries where people are coming from. In this part, we're going to talk to our panel. We have Ari Jimenez, retired Homeland Special Agent in charge, South Texas. We have Chris Cabrera, Vice President, National Border Patrol Council. And we also have Antonio Fernandez, CEO of Catholic Charities.
We have Bill Martin, our South Texas rancher, with a lot to talk about and your perspective. I'm really excited to hear more about, and all of you, honestly. Anna Lichtenberger as well, attorney for Alonso.
All right, we're going to start with Bill. I have spent a lot of time with the ranchers, and I actually brought a prop. Mandy, can you grab it? I brought a prop because I need to hand it to somebody. The last time we were out in La Pryor, the ranchers we were with, the Parsons, gave me this. They said, give it to someone, Border Patrol, and I haven't seen anyone. Cell phones. Mm-hmm. A lot of them had numbers in the back. Those that I've gotten before, I've handed over a wallet.
With an ID.
With an ID, but also, and Antonio.
Need help?
Being Holy Week, yeah. Can you get me? There you go. We have an ID, persons from Honduras. It also had a medicine, La Magnifica, with a small rosary.
Now to note, she has not turned this phone on.
Yeah, I haven't turned it on.
And Chris,
because as we know, you know why I'm not turning it on.
Yeah.
That will go on and somebody will know exactly where that phone is, and I want to give it to the authorities so you guys can trace it back. Antonio and Bill, how often do you see these?
Often. I'm so surprised about how religious these people are. They bring their rosaries, like plastic rosaries. They pray. We have a small chapel where anyone can actually pray in any of the religions, not just Catholic. Mm-hmm. For us, it's just part of what we do. It's like, you feed them, you clothe them, but also provide them spiritually. And I'm so amazed in how religious most immigrants are.
Bill, the same thing. How often do you see this?
Well, 2 years ago, we found a young lady that had laid down and died on the ranch, and she had no ID. They even took her shoes. So anything that she was carrying with her, whoever she was traveling with, took everything. So, and that was a sad situation also. It was just, Son Anna, we have in our cemetery at home in a corner where they bury the people that are never identified. And there's a row of crosses, and it's the saddest looking thing you've ever seen.
I can't imagine being in your position and the things that you've seen. And you were talking with us a little while ago about the condition that people turn up on your property?
Well, those two little girls I mentioned, they came across with a group of 80. They got separated, and 3 of them were left by themselves. 1 laid down and died, but these 2 were not far from it. They were hypothermic, and I got them in the truck, and I asked them if they wanted me to call the Border Patrol so they could go home, and their response was, no, es más peligroso en Guatemala. And they didn't know what they were getting into in the truck with me. They had no idea. But they were in a situation where, like I said, they didn't know anything, but they told me it was more dangerous at home than what they were possibly facing right there.
Anna, talk to us about the people that you're dealing with right now.
Absolutely. So I share Bill's sentiments in the type of people who come in, or the type of people that he sees, and saying that it is more dangerous where they're from. And this is the reasons why we see so many people come into the United States. They're willing to take that journey, as dangerous as it is, to get to the United States because of the fear that they have back home, because of the persecution that they are facing. And so this is something that we see as attorneys, as immigration attorneys, day in and day out, and hear these stories of people. And I was talking with Bill earlier, and we don't necessarily hear the stories of when people pass away at the ranches, because they don't get to us at that time. But we hear from the family members who have had the opportunity to come in, who we're trying to reunify with them.
And those, of course, are the people that are trying to come here and work. And I asked the sheriff from Terrell County yesterday, what keeps you up at night? And he said the people that are coming in to do us harm.
Yeah.
How real is that they're taking advantage right now to mingle with the people that just want to come work?
And this is not the first time I say this. All of us, including Border Patrol, Homeland Security Investigations, we have a number of stories of the suffering. I remember when I was still working, having 200-300 people just dying in Hebronville of heat exhaustion every summer. The problem that we have is, as heartbreaking as these stories are, if we all agree that 95% of the people showing up at the southern border is trying to make a better living for their families, they want to come to work, and they are doing this because they're afraid in their countries, let's agree on 95%. Because I was taught that never do math in public. So 5 is a good number. So let's agree that 5% of the people then is not. This is the 5% of the people that we do not have any background. They might be coming here to do us harm. They might have been criminals in the country. Realize that in Venezuela, we have no diplomatic relationship with Venezuela. Venezuela, they empty their jails. So a lot of people come from Venezuela. Some of them are going to come trying to work. Again, give me just a 5% of it. You want to do it easier. Give me 3% of them that we're not able to define their criminal history. We cannot deport them. We gave them a special asylum immigration status. It's same with Haiti. Haiti, all the jails got emptied. And we're going to have another spike of migration from Haiti. Who's who in the zoo? Who's coming to this country? Because we're unable to organize and legally proceed to a migration process, we are facing a national security concern. It's a national security issue. Illegal immigration is a national security issue. Again, we can go down to 1%. How many people we have? The statistics were $1.8 million, 1.8 million migrants so far this year. Take 1% of that 1.8 million people. How many individuals can be coming into our country to do us harm? Because we're not. The Department of Homeland Security abdicated their responsibility to protect our southern border.
That's still 18 million. I've had direct contact with some of that 5% you're talking about, and that 2 Christmases ago, Christmas Eve, my neighbor to the south was up in San Antonio. They broke in his house, took everything, like his wife's designer sunglasses, all her perfume, all the liquor. one pair of dress shoes that he said hurt his feet so bad he only wore them once. They loaded up his mule, hot-wired it, and took off. Now, these people weren't looking for a job. And even worse, it's even more scary to, one of my hunters about 3 years ago was in a stand and he saw a guy look out on a right-of-way and he had on one of those face coverings, and he came out and 8 or 9 behind with huge backpacks on. One in front had an AR-15, one in back had an AK-47. So these had to be drug mules. So anyway, that's a scary situation.
Chris, we've been moving on this conversation, and I just feel like I can see the wheels in your mind turning every time somebody says
Yes,
something.
yes.
We've got to get to you because your guys are the ones that are also seeing all of this. I mean, and when you're talking about people, that 5%, people that are rolling up with high-power assault rifles, those aren't the good guys.
No, let's call it for what it is. Under this administration, the border is so easy to get into. It was more difficult for me to get in this building here tonight than it would be to come into this country. I mean, that's just, I mean, that you can't debate that. You can't debate that. I mean, it's that easy. And, not everyone that comes across the border is looking to do harm to someone. But some are. And if we leave it unchecked, how many more? We just had the young lady up in Michigan that was killed by an illegal. We had the young lady out in Georgia also killed. A friend of mine down here on the river, Javier Vega Jr., Border Patrol agent, was killed in front of his wife, his kids, and his parents by 2 illegals that should not have been here. Now, yeah, are there people coming here to work? Yeah, yes. They are. But the first thing you're doing in our country is breaking the law. The first thing you're doing is breaking the law. You can come across and claim asylum at a bridge. That can be done. It's perfectly allowable. For some reason, they're not doing it. Now, if you come through the port of entry, we can check your record, find out who you are, and if you need to stay, then you stay. But if you come through and bypass the process, I mean, if the first thing you do in our country is illegal, how can we trust you on anything else?
So why aren't they allowing them? And I can say, because I've been there, there's been times that I've been in the middle of the bridge, down in Matamoros, down in Laredo, and people are walking up and they're not being allowed in to ask for asylum. Why does that happen?
And I can tell you, the Border Patrol is the only agency that does not have a no vacancy sign. If you go to the bridge, they'll only take so many. If you go to CIS afterwards, they'll only take so many. ICE, whatever the place is, we can't handle them right now. With Border Patrol, they just keep piling them on. And we're like that Motel 6, we'll leave a light on for you. And so we're encouraging it. We're encouraging it to happen. And in the meantime, young children, I had a 9-year-old boy have a heat stroke and die in front of me. I found the body of an 8-year-old boy with a little Pokemon belt on. I found the body of a lady and 3 kids. The oldest kid was 3. And it happens so much. You have kids that are separated from their families. The parents are already here, and the kids are just scared beyond belief. My wife saw a video on Facebook where this kid was turning himself in. He was screaming and crying, and she asked me, she was in tears, and she said, "Have you seen this?" And I said, "Well, I haven't seen this video, but I see that every day, every single day." And it's a shame the way it's happening, and the government needs to figure this out. They need to figure out what they're doing. If you care about these people, if you care about these kids at all, you'll figure it out.
All right, so we're going to take a look real quick. We've been hearing a lot this month about Texas Senate Bill 4. That's the state law that would allow officers to detain and return migrants who have crossed the border illegally.
Still on hold, at least for right now, but there are a lot of questions about this bill and where we go from here. Some of those, how would it actually work? Will it be the same for law enforcement in all parts of the state? And what's really written in the law? Something a lot of people are wondering. The I-Team's Jordan Elder, who covers immigration with Yami, has those answers.
One of those remaining questions about SB 4 is how will police enforce it if the courts eventually let the law go into effect? We're now getting a clearer answer. Lieutenant Chris Olivares with the Texas Department of Public Safety tells us the troopers will primarily be enforcing SB 4 along the border. He says there would only be a few exceptions to that, like a violent crime arrest or a human smuggling case somewhere else in the state where DPS can prove the person entered illegally. Representative David Spiller, who sponsored the bill, says officers have to have concrete evidence.
And so either they see them cross or they know because of surveillance techniques that we have on the border through Operation Lone Star that they've done so, then they can be charged with this offense.
But we went through every word of the law. It's written to have statewide implication with no mention of those specific border counties. Take a look at this exchange from the night this bill was passed.
We've talked about how your bill is not just a border bill, it's a bill with statewide ramifications, correct?
Well, I do believe it's a border security bill, but yes, it has statewide implications.
Okay, and so it's applicable, a law enforcement officer can apply this anywhere from Dallas to Houston to El Paso, correct?
If the officer believes that the probable cause exists in that instance and that they can prove each and every element of the offense beyond a reasonable doubt, yes.
So how do you prove someone entered illegally if you're not along the border? One lawmaker says you really can't. Representative Matt Schaefer wrote on X that it's not designed for the interior. Quote, SB4 enforcement in Fort Worth is nearly impossible.
Most of the enforcement of this is going to be, 95% of it at least, is going to be within 50 miles of the border.
But that's not explicitly written in the bill's final version. For the News 4i team, I'm Jordan Elder.
DPS sent us a statement on SB4 saying, quote, the Texas Department of Public Safety stands ready to enforce SB4 if and when it is allowed to take effect. DPS enforces Texas Penal Code provisions throughout the entire state whenever there is probable cause to establish each element of an offense. And because SB4 is subject to pending litigation, any further comment at this time would be inappropriate, end quote.
All right, Antonio, I want to ask you about this. I was down in Eagle Pass last week at Mission Border Hope. That's the refuge there that gets people going onto Governor Abbott's buses to other cities. Most of the migrants that were there, a whole 6 of them, had never heard of SB4. Do the migrants know here in San Antonio when they get here about SB4?
No, they have no clue. They may see the news of, of what's going on in the United States, in their countries, in Mexico when they're coming through, but at the end of the day, they don't understand the law, they don't understand the consequences. They're just coming to work. For them, it's clear, simple. We are good people. We just want to work in the U.S.
Anna, same question. And have they heard of it? Are they worried about it?
A lot of our clients, only because we've educated them, are worried about it. And so the other majority of people who don't have attorneys or maybe have experienced legal help don't know about this SB4 bill. And so they are uneducated.
Antonio, for you guys are Catholic charities, religious nonprofit organization. What is your mission?
For us, it's just to provide for anyone who needs services here in San Antonio. Anyone who at the Centro Bienvenida Migrant Center, everybody there is legal. There's people who have applied, so for federal help, they need to go and see a judge wherever they are going in the final destinations. So we serve everybody, legally. Anyone who goes into the site, they're coming to us from Border Patrol, Homeland Security, any other law enforcement entity. But for us, it's just like feeding the people, clothing the people, providing them with case management, legal services, counseling, or anything like that. So it's sad for me to hear about guns and things like this, and I understand that there may be issues like that, but I just also want to say is I have seen hundreds of thousands of people in all my years working with immigrants. I feel safe. I don't see the guns in San Antonio, so I just want to be sure that people understand that I'm sure there's going to be bad apples, but San Antonio is a city that I think is safe with the immigrants that we have here.
Would all of you, or I suppose the two of you, would you two agree? Or do you have concerns?
As far as San Antonio
Yes.
itself? Well, I think anytime, any city you go to, there's going to be bad apples, whether they're born here or whether they're not born here. I mean, that's just a foregone conclusion. That's going to happen. But I think what a lot of people don't understand is they think this border issue is relegated to the border, and it's not. There's a cartel presence in every major city, even small cities. And then you go even further than that. We don't have opioid problems in McAllen. We don't have that, but you have them up here. Where do you think it comes from?
That is a can of worms that I have been waiting to bring up. There's so many questions that I have for you guys, but I know Melissa's over there, and we've been getting a lot of viewer questions in. So can we go ahead over to Melissa and let some of the people who are watching at home ask their questions?
Yeah, we have been monitoring the Facebook page, and we have been getting a lot of comments and also some kudos that I just want to pass along to you. Hugo says, great people that are informing this, so thank you guys. And Nikki says, I agree with the man in the red tie, but want to get a question going. So Sheila Carvajal Bettis, she asked, how can we close the border down? We must stop this illegal immigration into our country. I am sorry, this is not right. It is dangerous to all the legal citizens to the U.S. What do you say to that?
Who? Raise hands. Who wants to
Man
go
in
first?
the red tie.
Someone call dibs.
You know, it's been, you know, obviously you're never going to stop everything. It's not going to happen, right? But I guess the goal is to get it to a manageable level. And it's been done before. I think in 2005, 2006, we had it was called expedited removal. We had huge numbers of El Salvador, Guatemalans, Hondurans, Brazilians coming in. And they gave me, as a Border Patrol agent, the authority to be the judge, to act as immigration judge. And so when they said I need to stay, and I said, okay, what's your reason? Okay, permission denied, turn around and go home. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of tears. But in 3 days, it stopped. It completely stopped. Mandatory detention, mandatory removal, reform the system. First you secure it, then you reform it. However you want to reform it. Everybody stays, everybody goes, some mixture in between. But the only way to get it done is mandatory detention, mandatory removal.
Anna?
I would not agree with that, only because I have seen so many people who have come in even after being mandatorily detained and have these expedited order removals. So I also want to point out that immigration laws as they are right now are extremely complicated, and there are a lot of people who don't get relief. It's a very limited form of relief for people who are outside the United States, and so they have no other form of coming into the United States to have a better life.
Adi?
Just enforce the laws that are in the books. We have the laws in the books. So 1986 was the last time that the Immigration and Naturalization Act was revised. That was when President Reagan was in office. And our politicians in Congress and Senate have been kicking the can down the road, unwilling to take responsibility and do their job, because that's what we put them to do, but they're not willing to do it. And they keep talking about, oh, we need to meet and talk about this problem of immigration. Enforce the laws that are in the book. And the same thing goes for the asylum seekers. If you enforce the laws and you start looking at who's actually coming here, we all want to come here, make a good life, work, the American dream. But it's very specific who can seek asylum based on race, religion, cultural. It's very specific. I'm not a lawyer, but it's clear. We're not enforcing the laws. We're not enforcing the asylum laws. We're not enforcing the removal laws because the Department of Homeland Security has relinquished. For example, I heard the question about SB4. Secretary Mayorkas was in Guatemala, and part of his speech was telling his audience in Guatemala, we are fighting SB4, and right now SB4 is not enacted, and we're going to keep fighting to take care of SB4. Now, think about that for a second. Why would Secretary of Homeland Security would be talking in Guatemala and acknowledging that his administration is fighting SB4?
It sounds like you're saying he's encouraging them to come.
Absolutely. This administration is encouraging everybody to show up at the border, and everybody's going to be allowed since the political campaign in 2020. And we're about to start the political campaign in full. And mark my words, we're going to hear the same thing over and over. We have a vice president that's supposed to be the czar of immigration and border security. And I'm sorry, our vice president is unable to find the border unless she's taken to it.
Melissa.
Yeah, and I think there's kind of, some people have, commented and have said this before, kind of on the confusion and who's coming and how do they stay. And so Anna, the question that she asked is, why can't the U.S. deport those coming in illegally other countries do it. We back Texas with trying to protect the state. So there is confusion when it comes to people coming in.
We can, we just don't. I mean, we can deport people, we just don't.
And where is that coming from?
Whoever, the administration.
administration.
They put a stop to it. I mean, we can, we just don't. And like the young lady was saying, that we deport somebody, we send them back, we remove them, and then they come back. Well, and the people that are in charge of making sure they don't come back, or once they get back and they're, in the city and ICE and ERO to do the removal, they're not allowed to do it because they're inside processing, making bologna sandwiches. So, I mean, they're not out there to get it done, and the whole system has just fallen apart, and we're okay with it. And the sad part is the state of Texas has to come in and do this job, which is great for the Border Patrol, but it makes their communities in San Antonio, up in Dallas that have to come down here, it makes their communities less safe because they're having to do this. So it's a big effect on it.
Anna, with that same question, I want to ask you, how long does it take a sibling to request for their sibling to come to this country right now? I want people to hear this.
So it depends on the country that they're coming from, but I'll give you Mexico, for example. It's over 20 years that somebody has to wait if they have a sibling petition.
To sponsor your family member. You are a U.S. citizen, and you cannot sponsor them because it takes 20 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And can we talk about what sponsor means so
Yes.
everybody can
Yes.
understand that?
Yes,
So-
go ahead.
No, let the lawyer.
So a family member can petition for somebody to come in saying, I am a United States citizen, a sibling, for example, and they can say, I want for my family to be together. So they petition for them and go through a process of, if they're outside the United States, a consular process where all the process is done outside or inside, just depending on the situation.
Bill, how many people have you met like that are crossing in and they tell you they have family here?
Quite a few. Those two little girls I was telling you about had family in Houston, and they were trying to get down there. So they probably weren't aware of the fact they could be sponsored anyway, but if it took 20 years, it wouldn't make any difference to them.
But the reason why it takes 20 years because those individuals being sponsored have to go through the same immigration courts that we are processing the other 1.8 million people that are not asking for sponsors, that are coming illegally into the country. So let's call it for what it is. We are allowing the limited resources that we have to be abused by a whole bunch of other people that are not willing to follow the rules, are not willing to stay in line, they want to jump in front. In 2014, 2015, 2016, we saw a similar spike of immigration. I was here in San Antonio heading Homeland Security investigations, and we worked side by side, Border Patrol, in all our offices, and we stopped that. Why? Because we work diligently to take those cases that are meritorious about asking for asylum, that they were escaping from abuses in their country, and we process those forward, and everybody else had to submit to an inspection by an immigration officer, by Border Patrol agents, by CBP. If we enforce the laws that we have in the books, we can stop this right now.
I really want to follow that up with another question, but we're going to go back to Melissa
Yeah,
first.
we just want to, speaking of the courts, let's go ahead and try to get Andy's question answered really quick. He wants to know who is keeping track of the migrants showing their day in court. Who's keeping track of this, and what percentage are actually going back?
Adi,
Chris.
Actually going back to their country
Being
of
deported.
origin, very few. What happens, they get released from the processing center. They'll have either an ankle monitor or a brand new Android phone, really nice phones. And they'll go to Catholic Charities, and then they'll go, obviously wherever they're going in the country. A lot of them will hit the first, second, third court date, and then when it comes upon, hey, your final order of removal is coming, they stop showing up. At that point, between 87 and 89%, somewhere in there, 88%, just stop going. And then the rest, they'll be ordered, very few, actually succeed in this system. And let's call it for what it is. The system's broke. Yes. It's easier to come in illegally than it is legally. If you were to come in legally, like she was saying, you have to prove all this stuff. That you have to prove that you're not a public charge, that you can support yourself, that you're medically fit. You have to take a test. You have to know the history. You have to do all these things. But if you come in illegally, I have actually had to release people with tuberculosis, with full-blown AIDS. Now, they couldn't have come in legally, but we have to release them into the country illegally. We were trying to fire Border Patrol agents for not getting COVID vaccines. We couldn't even ask the illegals to get a COVID vaccine, or even if what their status was. So the system is broke. They need to fix it. They need to secure this border first, then fix the system. And it has to happen. I mean, it's been a long time. Somebody needs to do something.
Anna, is the system broken?
I think it's broken, but I think it's broken for different reasons.
Why do you think?
And it's because we don't have a way for people to be able to go through the system legally, as he says. And so people coming in illegally, it's their only form of coming in. And it's not that we need to crack down on, people coming in or giving them this expedited order removal or ordering removal from a judge. I think we honestly need better relief available for people who it's more immediate, as opposed to waiting those 25 years outside the United States for them to come and reunify with their family.
Well, and you have to think of...
Who pays for that, though?
Sorry, go ahead.
Who pays for that? A lot of people want it. Everybody wants it. But we pay for it. Everybody wants it, and we pay for it. And taxes, it's getting harder and harder to survive in this country. Everything's up across the board, and we keep getting more and more taxes thrown on us. Who's going to pay for it? Everybody wants it, but they want to kick it down to us to pay for it. And it's not fair. We're all taxpayers, and we're getting hammered because the government can't figure out what they're doing. Everybody wants it, but they don't want to pay for it.
Well, when you look at the Migrant Resource Center, for example, the city has said, we cannot be funding this if federal money runs out. We've been waiting for this to go through, which it did last week. Now, people who provide aid to migrants like you all are hopefully going to be able to use those federal dollars instead of the city saying, look, we can't foot the bill. I want to read you something, though, that the Mexican president said during an interview on 60 Minutes. President said his solution, Mexico's solution to the migrant crisis, the United States commit $20 billion per year to poor countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, lift sanctions on Venezuela and the Cuban embargo, and legalize millions of law-abiding Mexicans living in the U.S. I'm sure everybody has thoughts on that. There's a lot to unpack
I got
there.
the response to that. If we're going to, instead of giving all that money, we'll take all the foreign aid we send to those countries and use it to fund these programs here, and they get nothing over there. I mean, if it's got to get paid for. And I mean, you look at Mexico's immigration laws. Those are some pretty strict laws. Those are some pretty tough laws. I mean, he doesn't allow people to just come into Mexico willy-nilly and stay there. They get deported, and they're told you have 20 days, you have 30 days to leave this country, whether it's north or south. If they were staying there, he'd be singing a different tune. But they're not staying there, so that's why he doesn't care.
Andrés Manuel López Obrador, AMLO, what he said is basically diplomatic blackmail.
You're not the first to suggest that.
You do not work that way. Throughout the years, I personally was involved in working in good faith, traveling to Mexico, to Guatemala, to El Salvador, and working with partner countries and working on providing not only the right funding, but also to make sure that it was not into corrupt hands. To actually even consider lifting embargoes into Venezuela, which is a oppressing government, you can tell that López Obrador is not going to be the president of Mexico in 3 months.
Well, and pointing out the Venezuelan government and what's going on in that country makes me think of Haiti, because it is apocalyptic in that country. I feel for all of those poor men, women, and children, bombs, explosions. People aren't eating. It is devastating and apocalyptic to look through the pictures. So for all of the people who are now making their way to the United States, what do we say for them truly seeking asylum here in a safe place?
And that's my situation. We see them in San Antonio. Senor, what are you doing here? We need to work. We need something to eat. Why couldn't you stay in your country? Corruption, violence, the law enforcement, they're raping their wives. The children have nothing to eat. They're coming because they have nothing else in life. So when we deport them, we're sending them back to hell. We are sending people back to a situation where they have nothing. Now they're actually even worse because they had to pay coyotes thousands of dollars to get to the U.S. So they're coming back now, and whatever they had to pay now they're going to get it back, and they're going to have to pay with their lives sometimes. So I think it's a humanitarian issue as well for many, many people.
It's a fine line between humanitarian and how many people do we let in, which I understand is the point, Ari and Chris, that you're making, because we've got to draw a line somewhere, but it's, the question is where.
Bill, for you, you're right there at ground zero. We're here. I go in and out every week to report, but you live there.
That's right.
What is it going to take?
I'm very, very discouraged about this situation ever improving, and I'll tell you why. Population of this world is reaching its capacity, and I don't see anything improving in any of the countries that these people are leaving, and this is their last hope. I checked one time, and the carrying capacity of the Earth is somewhere around 10.5 billion people, and we're about 8 billion right now. So that's a whole nother story, isn't it?
Anna, I think for people that are watching, what would you say to people what the process is like, and is this going to change?
The process is complicated, as I stated before. The immigration laws as they are complicated, and not everybody, qualifies for certain relief, as we've talked about before. And so my advice would always be to seek experienced legal advice to see what your relief is, to see how they can be here and go through the process as everybody has said.
All right, and Mandy, I want to ask you, because you're not from Texas originally, your impressions when you first went to the border.
Well, we had been following everything that happened in December with the record-breaking numbers, and so I was seeing these live shots in Shelby Park just full of people. And actually, one of the things I was going to tell you guys, I went up to Eagle Pass. I've been a couple times, and I got on the Rio Grande River. I was on a boat with the Eagle Pass Fire Department and their first responders. It's a small city, 30,000 people. They're staffed for 30,000 people. So when you have record-breaking numbers, hundreds of thousands, they're responding to all of those emergencies. I have chills just talking about it, but they're having to recover the bodies. So, like what you're saying, Bill, what you're having to see, these poor men and women in this small group are having to recover weeks at a time bodies of children. And it's heartbreaking. You can barely get through a conversation because they're saying they're concerned about their guys committing suicide because of what they're now having to see and deal with on a daily basis. And it's not what they signed up for. And they just hope, a lot of people say, I don't have the answer, but it can't keep going on like this.
That's hard. It's very hard. And
it's heartbreaking.
I can tell you every time that we see someone new that's coming in, new reporter to the area, my heart goes out to you guys because we choose to do this job. Let's be for real. We choose to do the job. We go out there. We're used to it up to a certain point, but we're still human beings. And we try not to lose our humanity while allowing people, like the people we have today on this panel, to voice their opinions. But it is hard when you are there and you're seeing a family with a child who's sick and needs to come in. And I mean, Border Patrol agents, this is part of the reason why so many are dying by suicide, because they're having to face this. And I want to leave you with something else that somebody told me when we went to Phoenix maybe 10 years ago, and it was law enforcement, and they told me, Yami, when September 11th happened, we couldn't get anything in or out. The cartels were not moving anything, and we were up listening. Ari, am I lying or not?
That's correct.
Okay, they could not move anything in and out. So there is a way to stop the flow at the border, correct?
Absolutely. And it is an immigration, it is a humanitarian crisis, it's a national security crisis. We are incentivizing illegal immigration. This is a proverbial chicken or the egg. If we stop giving money and allowing the people to come in, and we're not giving them legal status, we're giving them nothing to appear or nothing to report. That's why throughout the years they disappear into the wind. The Department of Homeland Security is not allowing the ERO, ICRO officers to go and remove the criminal aliens that are inside the jails, that are the people that we want out, because as a Latino, as a Hispanic, I don't want a black eye on my culture and my people because of the criminals that are coming to the country. But the DHS is not allowing them to do their job. And all the monies that we're talking about, what the President of Mexico talked about, the millions of dollars, we cannot do that. We cannot just be the checkbook of the Western Hemisphere. We need to find a solution. We need to seriously discussion, and the Congress have to put up to it, and the Senate have to put to it. And if not, elections are coming. This is the moment.
Okay,
Vote them
Bill, you've
out.
been quiet, and they're giving us a wrap, but go ahead, Bill,
One
go.
quick thing, I want to say a couple of good things about the Border Patrol. They've done two things recently. They put a ranch liaison man in charge of dealing with all our problems, and that helps. The horse patrol they put together is great because they can go places that a man can't go either on foot, but they can do it quicker. And their carbon footprint is nil, zero. When they go to the ranch, when they leave, all I see is the tracks and where the horses have fertilized my pasture.
Guys,
Thank you.
I still have so many things I'd like to keep talking to you about. We didn't even really graze the surface of all the questions that I had for you, so I might make some of you stick around and talk to me. But unfortunately,
We ran out of
we're
time,
getting
even
the
on
wrap
the
it up,
internet.
ladies.
Thank you so much. And, you know, of course, we talk to them all the time. Go back and look at our stories. You know, the poll question's still there. One last look at the poll question. Who does a better job protecting the border? There you go, 89 and 11%.
In favor of the federal government has ticked
Thank
up
you.
1 more percent. Yes.
Thank you, Mandy, for doing this with me tonight.
Likewise.
And, you know, and me doing this with you.
I'm glad.
We're here together on this, and let's keep having that conversation. If you ever have a question or you have a thought for an idea, you can always reach out to us. For me, you can go to foxsanantonio.com.
You can go to news4sa.com for me.
There you go, and thank you so much. And, you know, tonight I would tell people we have to secure our border, but we never lose our humanity as a country. Good
Yes.
evening.